Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Friday, what is it now, the 6th of January. How the month's flying past. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the potential news events the impact events. And today, let's just look at today on its own. It's nice and clear then, he says. There we go. So we've got the euro flash estimate of inflation. Now this obviously is quite significant number, so we'll see what's happening here. I'm not sure if we've seen the individual numbers, but either way the overall figure will give us a guide to what the ECB will be doing, but increasing rates by the looks of these numbers. Anyway, a drop off, but they've got a long way to go to get them back to sort of the 2% targets. Side of that, then we've got the US and Canadian non-farm payrolls. That's the big event today. Again, we'll be looking at average earnings, in particularly there to see what sort of inflation's coming through from that perspective, and of course to see how the markets are holding up there in terms of the job market. So again, so it's currently sitting at its 3.7% level. Is it gonna continue in that level, or they need to effectively reduce the employment to reduce the inflation? Right. Okay. Enough of that. Let's look at. Of course, we've got the ISM Services PMI later on, which we might see a little flicker as that comes out. Let's look at these markets then. We'll start off looking at the euro dollar. And well, the euro yesterday, I was sitting in there waiting patiently for most of the morning to see any action, and it looked like a couple of times it was going to do something, and eventually it did in the afternoon on the news there at 1:15. The ADP payrolls figures came out better than expected, quite a lot better than expected, although it seems to be that the markets have forgotten they're useful as chocolate teapot normally, because they generally are way out. Well, we'll see today, but this would suggest that there's a lot more people being employed, so it's going against the picture that the Feds are trying to aim for. Okay, so it finally broke down there anyway. Quite a big move. I expected it, to be fair, to bounce back into the range it was sitting in, but it is looking a tad on the soft side. Has got the daily pivot above. It's early morning yet, but if it post 8 o'clock it starts getting a move up, could just pull up back into that pivot, and could break beyond, of course, but certainly there's a high probability of that pivot being hit. Okay, let's move on. Euro, the pound. So the pound weaker overall. Sold off most of yesterday. In the end, it just got weaker and weaker. It was dancing around again for a while up here. Nice sort of lower high coming through, and off it went, but with the news being the main generator of that movement. Now consolidated again. It's got the same picture as the euro. It's got the pivot just above us there, so that might be a draw. With both these, we could be looking at selling off the pivot, but we'll see what happens this morning, because I'd rather wait for the non-farms, to be fair. The actual market action, when you come back to the dailies, it had been pretty decent, but been selling off for a while now. So whereas the euro is more solid of the two. US dollar, yen. Well, we've seen a bigger bounce here as well. It's sort of going against the expectations and the sentiment of the big money, but this is the way it's running at the moment, and higher lows running through there, pushing on through on the 4 hourlies. I was looking for a breakdown yesterday after a push into this pivot, which just didn't happen, so it just never set up, and well, it's just continued up for now. And okay, again we got inverted, but we got the pivot, daily pivot below here, and it's a case where it pulls back into this to give us a continuation. But again, this could be affected quite wildly later on with the non-farm payrolls coming out. Aussie dollar remains to be ugly and choppy. It really isn't a nice looking market, this one. It's well, it looks at one stage that it's going to fly up there, and well, the last couple of days been selling and really rolled over here, lower highs through, looking soft, already caught the pivot. If anything, it looks sort of the weaker of the bunch at this stage, or amongst the weakest of the bunch. We could just see a continuation to the downside there. It's it may have already had its main move, but looking at it in the daily perspective, it's just chopping along here, and I think until it really shows its hand, I've redrawn my little trend line across there. Maybe if it breaks below that, then it becomes a bit more bearish on the bigger picture, and I'll look on the bearish side more so. My focused US dollar CAD, another one that's quite consolidated and quite ugly. It really is sort of following the picture of the Aussie. Their correlation's pretty tight at the moment, and well, it's literally whipsawing one way then the other way. Where to today? It's a throw of the coin from where it's sitting at the moment. Again, as with the Aussie, it's already hit the daily pivot there, catching a bit of a bounce. As I said, it might be just a case of waiting with a lot of these currencies until the non-farms comes out later. Okay, so there's the majors. Let's switch across to look firstly at oil and gold, beg your pardon. Well, gold's picked up this morning, sold off yesterday, no surprise with the stronger US dollar there. Today's I keep pinning it back onto non-farm payrolls, but that's the reason we saw the bigger move yesterday in terms of the numbers that came out there. So if these non-farm payrolls disappoint, well, we could be back into the original trends, and seeing this push up here. But likewise, if they show that there's some decent numbers still coming through, that just puts more pressure on the Feds to put interest rates up further. Okay, oil, he says. There we go, got the wrong one. Spot crude, please. Here we go, I'm talking to myself there. So crude, well, we already seen it yesterday. It didn't really do too much. We saw it come off there on Wednesday. Today, well, choppy as ugly as anything at the moment on this shorter time frame, this 4-hourly time frame. Just looking to see if there's anything obvious there, but looking pretty ugly. Still got scope for the downside, to be fair. I think in the shape of things, as they sit at the moment, looks like it's maybe still we'll head back to those prior lows and maybe even lower. Okay, that's oil. Let's just quick flick through the markets then on the dailies. So CSI 300 is continuing its path up where it had been bucking the trend pretty much, but it's pulled the Nikkei up with it today. So the Nikkei also pushing for an update here, but really in a very much a downward trend at this stage. So very much a downward trend, but that's where it's running there. The Nifty 50, well, looking to roll back. Its overall picture here is gone quite weak actually now compared to where it was, and this looks like it's going to break these lows here, giving us a lower high. It looks pretty soft at the moment, the Nifty 50. It really was championing things for a while. We had, let's just go back here. We had a decent shove up there, but more recently it's rolling over, and this particular weekly move here looks making it look pretty soft in the bigger scheme of things. Okay, US markets, looking at S&Ps, consolidating where we are still in the bigger picture here. It's just consolidating. It did have its sell off there. Not looking good at all where it's sitting. Sort of hand railing this trend line. Again, if the figures come through particularly good from non-farms, I think we could see the breakdown here. That it's probably been threatening for some time. You look at it on that 4-hourly picture, and well, you can see how tighter and tighter the market ranges are getting. Okay, S&Ps, so the Dow Jones, similar picture in terms of its sitting at a consolidated phase there, the way it's running on a daily, and then Nasdaq, this too, very similar but weakest. The weakest a lot. I looked at it yesterday, ended up pulling back south again, and it just, to me, it's got the best scope for more of a rollover. Coming close to home then, the DAX. DAX yesterday, were barely any movement in the DAX yesterday. Looks like here it was closed. There's no one in yesterday. The tight old range is sitting through there yesterday, looking a little bit softer at the moment, but it's certainly, just looking at what's going on there, just hanging in there, just struggling. Obviously, there's supply up at that end there, and it's not yet broken towards its highs. Finally finishing off on the FTSE here, and well, the FTSE is outperforming again. It's taken out its last November, December, where is it? December's highs, or November's highs. It's just in November there. November highs, it's taken those out yesterday, and currently the futures are up, so we'll see how that develops through the morning. Okay, finally, just going to switch across to the crypto world for those that you're going to be looking at it, and we'll just see what's happening before the weekend here. Just have a look. Nothing. It's a bit like a standard video. This, I could just record this last part, and it's just been sitting in here. Yes, it's having its little short-term movement, which can be quite big moves, of course, but in the bigger scheme of things, it really isn't moving that well. A lot of the markets here, to me, looking very soft and very well, potentially weaker to come. It looks like we could see a further sell-off. Having said that, of course, it's a weekend coming up, and we might see something weird going on, and we'll probably see it rally like a good one. But to me, they all look weak. If I was trading them, I'd be looking for every opportunity to short them as they sit at the moment. Right, that's it for me. I wish you a great weekend, and I'll catch you back on Monday. Take care. See you then. Morning, Michael. Sorry.